All right, I have got my friend Aly Sterling here with me today. And Aly, it has been such a great weekend already. And I know so many people are anxious to hear from you. You've got a session coming up a little bit later this weekend. And man, I'm just so thrilled to have you here with us. Thank you for being here with us this weekend.
Oh, well, my absolute pleasure, Jonathan. So it truly is. I had so much fun at the last leadership conference, and I cannot wait to be part of this one again. So thanks for having me, and thanks for having me be part of your community.
Absolutely. Well, Aly, a lot of people kind of know some of your background and your story, but I would love to just, if you could just take a couple minutes just to kind of catch us up to speed on really two things. For those of you who haven't met you before, maybe what is it that you are doing, and then also what is your background? But then tell us a little bit how that's kind of changing a little bit with this new environment, because here we are on video instead of in person, and it's a different day now. So tell me a little bit about catch us up to speed.
Sure. Well, I'll give you a quick recap kind of my background. I fell into the nonprofit space. Actually, I was in finance about 22 years ago. I tracked this based upon the age of my children. So, and I was in finance, and I ended up getting a graduate degree in sociology and had an internship in a nonprofit, and just fell in love with the nonprofit sector at that point. So decided I could maybe use my business acumen in that, in that industry, and never looked back. So worked for an HIV and AIDS service organization, healthcare organization, a mental health organization. And then after being an employee for 10 years, decided 12 years ago to start our firm. So our firm is all about helping all nonprofits, all shapes and sizes, to be successful. And we believe wholeheartedly that, there's three key ways to do that, right? There's fundraising, which is our revenue, just like in the for-profit industry. So you got to have revenue coming in. So fundraising, strategic planning, so that business model is critical. And then people and talent. And that in the nonprofit space is both your staff, and most importantly, you've got your boards, who are just, again, that backbone and that foundational strength for all of our nonprofits.
That's so good.
Today, Jonathan, I don't think any of that has changed at all. I think, if anything, there's a stronger case for those three aspects to be as functional and as vibrant as possible within organizations. And it doesn't matter, truly philosophically, we see small micro nonprofits equally as we do the large ones, as far as how important that infrastructure, right, and that foundational strength is. And so much of this COVID has really, I think, allowed us to just hone in and focus even more tightly on those critical aspects. So I think they are absolutely relevant, even more so today. And I think we are seeing nonprofits who want to kind of make it out of this, if you will, stronger, really taking the time to do the hard work around those three things. Again, fundraising, strategic planning, and really board leadership. So
Yeah. That's so good. And, I think that as a leader, it's important too to just be intentional. One of the things I love about your model, and so much of what you encourage people to do is about that planning process. It's about putting the energy into the forethought and the planning. I was in the finance industry, as you know, for many years as well. And, I think all of us that were in there were all closet analysts. We like to look at the numbers and crunch a few things and pretend like we were, maybe for me at least, something I really wasn't an analyst, but I like to pretend I was. And so, but in those things, I think that it's an important perspective to try to figure out, wrap your head around the thing. But when you're going through a crisis like this, and especially something that's so unprecedented, like a global pandemic. I mean, I talk to people every day that have had, they thought they would never see a day like this in their whole lives. And of course, I didn't either. So, I think we're in some unprecedented territory. And for that reason, getting creative and not being paralyzed by the pressure of having to know everything, but getting in that creative space sometimes actually can be a benefit to you, to help you chart an even better future, don't you think?
Oh, I think so. I think that that's part of the silver lining around all this. There's our nature to be adaptive is really paying off. I think we are seeing a lot of organizations who never thought they could do some of the things that they are pulling off today really, really well. And I think those things are here to stay, that flexibility, that the notion of changing events virtually to doing one-on-one cultivation with donors, with prospects. We used to do that in person, and certainly that's optimal. But honestly, we've seen some amazing things transpire virtually like this as effectively as ever before. So I think we know that technology is not a limitation at all. It actually, and people who I never thought would embrace technology are actually getting incredibly fluent in it in a way that they're off and running. So, when we look back and we look at the research, that little bit of an analyst in me looks back at the research back at the Great Recession and the stock market, a couple different massive, changes and dumps that we had back then, and 40 points down, et cetera. When we look back at what happened to giving over that period of time, actually, there's only a 4% decrease in giving. 4%. I mean, that's negligible. Really, it is.
Right.
But a commonality, Jonathan, that we see as far as organizations who not only maintained and sustained, but grew after that Great Recession, the commonality is that they stayed incredibly communicative with their donors, with prospects, with their stakeholders. They were really attentive. I mean, hyper attentive. They were mixing up the way that they, communicated both impact and relevancy, and how even more important their missions were to that period of time, which I think we are seeing exactly the same thing now. There are organizations who aren't shying away from interacting and engaging. Actually, those that shy away and did shy away back then, unfortunately, those constituents, they went elsewhere, right? Because we have so many other options today as to who to support, that we really have to keep our best people as close as possible. And now's the time, definitely to do that. So, but 4%, that was it. So the sky is not falling, even though sometimes it feels like it is, but I don't think it technically is.
Well, I know one thing that drives the markets, as you kind of alluded to, is there's really only two things: it's either fear or greed, right? And I think that that's sometimes the temptation for us, is that you have to sort of recognize the fact that the environments that we work in are very much like the weather we live in. Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's sunny, but whether the global tone of this world is either fear or greed, it almost really, I mean, kind of what I hear you saying, it's almost like you can't really focus on either one. You just got to be targeted on your mission. You got to be focused on being able to communicate well and continue to carry yourself in a way that you certainly would hope that someone else would do for you if you were in their shoes. And I think if we keep those simple principles, in front of us, we will actually come out stronger and sustain these types of seasons.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't think any of that's going to change even after we get through this. Our world is just, it's fast paced and it's up and down. And I think the resiliency factor is so critical in our leaders.
Yeah.
Staying the course, as you said, is so critical as well. At the same time, we have seen many organizations in investing in a lot of scenario planning, right? Because that's prudent, because we don't exactly know, and our organizations are too important to just leave things to chance. So I think it's a combination, it's unbalanced, staying the course, having scenario planning, being able to pivot quickly if you need to. And that's where boards really can come into play, right? As advisors, truly people who are from the outside, who can look in a little differently and provide some, just perspective that sometimes internally we need in times like these. But yeah, staying the course, being flexible, adaptable. I think just having, simply put, a positive mindset. To go back to your analogy, we either come from a place of plenty or a place of scarcity. And so a place of plenty is really important now, because as we are looking to see what's happening from a giving perspective, People are absolutely giving, and they're really giving in some ways more and differently. So it's out there.
Yeah.
It just, we have to, I think along those lines, and draw ourselves in the direction of those who want to be part of a solution for your mission.
Right. And we talk about this all the time, is that you can't think about the list of things that you are limited by or that you can't do. You need to focus on the list of things that you can do. And that changes, especially in an environment like this. I mean, just like today, you and I normally would be having this conversation in a ballroom somewhere in a hotel, but thankfully we're still able to connect over video and be able to think maybe a little differently than normal. But in some ways I've gotten to see you and so many other friends almost more. I know that sounds weird, but almost more, because I'm not having to take the time, and even limited by budget for travel and all those things. We're not waiting till 6 months from now when we can be together. We're just saying, hey, no, let's connect now, because this is the tool we have in our hand. And I love your perspective on that, because it's about, you don't want to oversimplify it, but at the same time, sometimes those fundamentals are what really pays off. Staying focused on the positive, and not looking away
Yeah.
into all the negative narrative that.
Well, and I think that actually we're having even more authentic, oddly enough, authentic communication and relationship building, because I get to see you in your natural environment. And I don't get to, right, a ballroom in a hotel doesn't count, you know?
Right.
And so we've had feedback from major gift officers and donors who have said, you know, I actually had a better conversation with this person who I used to have to meet with or travel to see, because I got to see their kids in the background and their dog. I met their dog, right? And like the messy, dirty kind of stuff that like is real. So I think it actually deepens a bond in some situation. It's a gift. I mean, there's lots of silver linings, that's for sure.
That's so true. So good. It's like watching National Geographic. You get to see us in our natural habitat.
Yes,
Love it.
an ethnographic study, yes.
Well, look, take a couple minutes and tell us, you're getting ready to do a session for executive leadership, board members, volunteers that may be thinking about getting involved in their local organization, or maybe they're a hope group leader, support group leader, those types of people. But you're getting ready to do a session and talk a little bit more and go into depth in some of these things about fundraising, how to take it to the next level, how to survive some of these rocky times. But kind of tell us a little bit about what that session is going to look like.
Yeah, so my perspective on this is we have 6 months left in the year, right? And so what are we going to make of it? How can we end strong, right? The first 6 months weren't the best for any of us at all. And I think that we're now feeling a little bit more settled, or a little bit more on solid ground, although I don't know for sure. But at least we can plan that way, and we can look at the next 6 months. And I'm a firm believer in what's the highest and best use of our time, especially as it relates to fundraising, donor development, board engagement. So how do we end strong by the end of the year? And we can look back and say that we did everything we possibly could to make this year, to reset this year in many ways. So I'm going to talk a bit about what this new normal looks like. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to be prepared for anything else that might happen. So I don't want to say how to be bulletproof, but how to at least adopt a mindset where we're strategic, we're embracing what we know, what we don't know, and we're just really engaging all of our constituents into the cause in a way that's a little different than before, which I think is exciting. And I think that vulnerability to some extent is attractive to the people who support you already and who might be considering supporting you. I think the best part is that I've got a toolkit to give to people that they can actually take back and they can complete for themselves. And so it's really a do-it-yourself kind of template right off the shelf. They can customize it, but it's simple. And I think it will help everyone plan for those next 6 months. So I'm excited to share that.
That's so great. And that's something that they can even take back to their board members or other people in their organization and help work through together, and even give them a presentation in some ways of what they've learned through this. So I'm super, super excited and looking forward to that session. I know you always just bring some of the best information. I think one of the things that I geek out over the most is all the stats. You always bring in, these charts and graphs and stuff, and I love that. So thank you so much for being a part of this weekend, helping us to really dive deep into learning how to navigate these uncertain times. And I certainly look forward to seeing you a little bit later on.
Yep, same here. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks so much, Aly. We'll catch up with you
Yeah,
soon. All right.
sounds good.